In this video, I replaced the bearings on the back of my disc. I start by spraying all the bolts and nuts with PB Blaster, and this helps take off any loose dirt and stuff that might be on them. If there's stick dirt, I wire brush it, and it helps the nuts come off with the bolts. I like to use a breaker bar to get the nuts loosened up first. Those back ones are kind of difficult to get into. Once they're all loosened up, I put ratchet straps on, and I use the ratchet straps to hold it and secure it because I don't want a disc blade or the whole thing of disc blades taking my toe off. I'm not sure it'd actually take my toe off, but it would definitely put a hole in my boot and didn't have to buy new boots because they wouldn't be waterproof anymore. So save me some money that way. Probably a doctor's visit. After I got ratchet straps securing it, I take off the nuts with an impact driver, and I'm keeping an eye on where my feet are, especially as I get closer to getting all the nuts off, so that if it does fall, they don't fall on my toes. With a little persuasion, the disc scrapers came right off. And I don't like banging directly on bolts, but these are big enough that I wasn't really afraid of messing up the threads on the end. Once I got it off, I moved it off to the side because I didn't need to do anything with this. A little more persuasion to get that whole gang of blades off. The ratchet straps are there just to keep it all secure so it doesn't just fall on the ground and roll on me. Once I get it freed up a little bit, I loosen the straps up and continue to work on it. Over time, it's kind of grown in there a little bit, so the hammer tapping helps. You can see the dirt's flying off of them as I hit it. Uh, don't really trust ratchet straps, so I'm just being careful. Slowly kind of work on one side and then the other. Easing it down there. They have a keeper at the end that it's just a flat piece, a square piece of metal, and it folds over the lock washer and nut. So it actually goes over the nut to keep it from spinning. I'm not sure they actually do anything. It's probably a little overkill, but maybe when they were brand new. Now, I had troubles getting the socket to fit on that, and it is the right size socket. So I tried to bang it on because sometimes if it's just a little bit, they'll get it on. So that didn't work, so I got a bigger hammer. That also wasn't very successful. So I took a file and hit each side of it. For the other ones that actually a couple of them were worse, I took if they didn't fit right on there, a flap disc on a grinder and just kind of polished off up each side, and then the socket is able to go on, but it didn't take enough where it wasn't loose. And then I use a pipe wrench, and until I started farming, I never used a pipe wrench for anything except plumbing, and now I use them all the time on equipment and grip around things. And here I am with the cheater bar even, just trying to get that off. And I'm working against myself here, and later on I'll show a better way of doing it because this wore me out after a couple of them. Once it was broke off free, I was able to use the ratchet to back it off the rest of the way, which is a lot faster, but that's still a lot of work. You see there's that lock washer and that keeper, and then there's just that square thing the keeper goes in. So I unstacked everything exactly how it came off on the ground next to it, and that way I knew it was all going to go back on the same way. Those little spacers do have directions, so the inside's smaller than what goes on the outside curve of it. I just took them off one by one. So this is the bearing and I guess you'd call it the keeper. I went with greaseless bearings on the back here. I left the greaser in that because they were pressed in and I don't have a way to get them off. But the way they're greased is there's a little hole on the outside of the bearing, which is like the race, and the grease goes on around it and it's supposed to push in there. I think it's a spot for dirt to get in, and I'm not sure how much grease actually gets in there. So I decided to go with sealed bearings. Talking to people, some people love them, some people like to have greasable bearings, and but some people said they've tried them and they last the same amount of time. If they do, the time savings of not having to grease these back ones would probably be worth it. So I left the rubber in there and just put it back together. I did wipe it off a little bit. Just used that impact driver to kind of zip them on there. So the fronts I did last year, and this year I did all the back, so I can kind of compare to see. The fronts usually wear a little bit quicker, I think, so I'll get an idea to see how long they last. And there was only a couple bad ones in the back, but I went ahead and replaced all of them. And any of the bearings that looked okay, I saved. So next time, as some start to have problems, I'll replace just the ones that are bad with used ones. Used good ones, I should say. I just zipped them back on and so putting it back together is in reverse order. You see, I did replace the two outer disc blades because they were wore a lot. Replaced them with the heaviest gauge I could find too. But putting it back together is just the reverse order. Just stacking them all and keeping it tight. Once I get towards the end, I actually lift it up kind of to push it even more. Because you need to make sure some of that square shaft comes through this last one so that square keeper that holds the lock on the end there actually gets something to bite as it goes in. And it's just a reverse order of putting it on. I like to make sure the thread's started so I don't strip any threads. And I had to hammer it on again. Like I said, the other ones that had problems, I took a flap disc too off a grinder and just lightly polished up. Because when I hammer it on, gotta hammer them off, and that could be a pain. And there I'm with the cheater. I'm kind of fighting myself there, trying to hold it and tighten it, and that wears a person out. I found a better way, which is coming up here. Bending over the keeper here, which is much as that's torqued down. I don't, when with the lock washer, I'm not sure it's doing much, if anything. So I used ratchet straps since I was getting up by myself to I got one side a little bit off the ground, and then I worked on the other side and just kind of kept working it back and forth. So I was able to hold it up, and then with the ratchet straps tighten it to hold what I had. Once I had it close, I got a couple nuts on it just to hold it. Once I had nuts on everything, I tightened the ratchet straps all the way. I went from the outside, from one side to the other, so it all lined up. And then I took the nuts back off and had the ratchet straps tight, so that's all that's holding it right there. And I was able to get those disc scrapers back on there. Once I had that on, I just started a couple nuts and tightened them with my impact driver. After that, just torqued them on with my wrench there. So this is a bad bearing. You can see that the seal is gone, and actually some of the balls are missing, so they're in the field someplace, but you can kind of see some of the balls there. And that was off of that one. I put it on the same way. So this is the better way of doing it, and this is the taking off the end of the blade there. So I used the 2x4 on the ground and put the pipe wrench handle against that, and the 2x4 keeps it from sinking into the ground. And then I can use my whole body weight to, with the cheater, to work on getting it without holding and pulling. And for tightening, it was just the reverse there. Just put that 2x4 to keep it from sinking in and tightened it up, made it much better. So I was tightening it against the ground versus tightening against myself. Able to get a lot more force that way also. So there it is. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.